Dr. Joseph Martin. The great topic for today is I Die Daily, Spiritual and Psychological Techniques for Wholeness and Completion. Well, this is seemingly an unusual topic, but in a time when ego rules the world and power and dominion is controlled by other people's egos, it leaves us in such a place of fear and denial and defeat and depression and so on, and even paranoia, which is a growing kind of experience for most Canadians and Americans, I would imagine people all over the world. And what is this based on? I guess it's based on, and I'm trying to be sincerely joking here, the NSA and other governments, they have this motto, I spy daily, which we hear all the time on the news, the CBC national news here in Canada. This is not what I mean, but it's a way to overcome all the paranoia and all the fear and all the doubt and depression and hopelessness that's going on the planet today as we end this civilization of the fifth post-Atlantean subspecies time. I die daily. This is actually a quote from the New Testament in the Bible. It's from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 31 by Paul. Now, many of you have read the Bible. I myself have read it over a dozen times since I was a young man of 6 years, 7 years. And Paul was a Gentile who had a Damascus Road experience. And in such an experience of the infinity of light and super consciousness coming to him that he fell off his horse on the road to Damascus and was actually blinded to the ego world for a while and had for quite some time, as many other mystics of the world have had, and I myself have had, an experience that enlightened his mind beyond the ego to the self or the soul or the cosmic consciousness, the Christ consciousness. I'd like to do two things here with this one comment phrase from Paul and suggest that we look at it first psychologically, and I'll share with what I've done with myself personally and for over, I'd say 40 years with thousands of clients in my clinics in Canada. And then we'll secondly look at it from a spiritual perspective of how you can attain cosmic consciousness and Christ consciousness. These are the healing techniques to die to the ego and open to the soul. Sounds quite simple, with a lot of daily skill sets and learning and exercise and implementation. You too can do all of this and more. Psychologically speaking, it's about what is dying when you say I die daily. It's a kind of a phrase, a psychological, spiritual psychological phrase to say that the part of me that needs to die daily is the ego. It's the part in the very kind of early evolution of the ego consciousness within individuals and humanity as a collective. We have many thousands of years ahead of us to grow until the ego is being able to be taken from the seat of the soul and transmute and transformed with all its lies and deceit and fears and kind of tripping games and power games that it employs every minute of every day and night, even in the dream time. We need to evolve the ego. The best way we can do it in the 21st century is to let it die and kill it. Die, ego, die, every day. In my clinical practice, what I did with my clients is I encouraged them to explore the basis of the ego and what it does to the personality. And when they realized that it was quite a killer of their soul and their higher consciousness, they were quite ready and eager to kill their ego. This is an important psychological process. It's a transformational wholeness series of techniques, methodology. So it's very well known in transpersonal psychology if you want to look online there as well. I illuminated at least 500 fears. I had them all in lists and pages in my clinic, and we'd take just one or two every session and have people do an inner journey, a visualization, a very deep one actually, sort of self-hypnotic healing trance as it were. and undergo the capacity where they would be soul-centered, and from their soul they would be in charge of the ego, and we'd have a fear circle where they would call their fears to them one at a time to the edge of the fear circle and not allow that ego-ridden fear inside the sacred circle of their soul and sacred heart. And in this process, they learn to take charge of with their soul, of the ego and its fears, lies, deceit, and its kind of power tripping. So one at a time, over many sessions, they learn to deal with all their fears eventually. And like myself, and I highly recommend this for every one of you, the final and greatest fear, which is the greatest lie of the ego, is the fear of death. The fear that you will be no longer, your consciousness will be no longer. Sure, it's certain that the physical body, the overcoat as we call it, will be gone and go back to the minerals of the earth. However, the soul is immortal and eternal and always will be somewhere in the spiritual worlds, in the higher dimensions. These higher dimensions and the knowledge of the higher worlds will be something that we'll look into very much so in our I Am Self-Worth online coaching program. A great book to read is Knowledge of Higher Worlds by Dr. Rudolf Steiner, the founder of the Waldorf system, education, self-education. Now, collectively in groups, we used to do workshops for dozens of people at a time where they would also do fear circles and resolve their fears, and somehow in a community of like souls, it sometimes can be easier to dissolve and deal with your fears, transmute them to a higher consciousness of the resilient knowledge that the soul is immortal and eternal. Now, this also was very important to do around past lives, because unless and until you deal with your ancient fears from some of your earliest past lives on the planet, and yes, the Buddha did remind us that each one of the human souls on the planet today have had at least 1 million past lives as a human being. There's something to think about. The concatenation and the domination of all those fears over all those lives, and the fears just build and build and build from one life to the next until it becomes almost insurmountable. And that's why it's so important to deal with it now, because fear, as you know, can be very paralyzing. However, transformation and wholeness can be very productive and very joyful and very peaceful. These are the simplest forms of the techniques of psychological wholeness when you allow and you kill your ego daily on that basis to allow something greater to come. When you allow the box of the ego, which puts a stranglehold on your mind, your emotions, your heart, your relationships, your business, your money, your wealth, your career, and all that, then you dissolve that box daily and allow it to kind of switch it up and get into some new place of consciousness. That's what we're all here for now. And by the way, I have a feeling that this global consciousness that's arising as we're all searching for our own personal Damascus Road experience of Occupy Love, Occupy Freedom, Occupy Soulfulness, I guess, heartfeltness, is available to all of us. And, these kinds of experiences can happen momentarily within a day or two. All it takes is for you to say, I'm fed up with the ego and how it rides me and rules my life and ruins my life. And let's just go into the soul and kill the ego. And eventually, by the way, the good news is the ego will grow and evolve and grow and evolve and expand until eventually it will also be one and the same with your highest soul consciousness, the Christ consciousness and the cosmic consciousness. This is the good news. So spiritually, how do we do this? Well, it's basically through yoga and meditation. In the ascent of the ancient yoga, the I Am Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, Kundalini Kriya Yoga, the Raja Yoga, and bring that all together with the notion that the best and most important essential part or component of yoga, this I Am Yoga, is to create the union with the divine. Yoga for you and meditation for you can be the uniting with the divinity within your own soul, your own source, your own heart. This is what's key. And when you unite with the divinity within yourself, as Carl Jung says, or the higher self, as we say, the soul, the Atman, the Jiva Atman becomes the Atman. then you know that in fact you have found home. You're home free, so to speak. This is what yoga and meditation are for: union with the divine, and eventually with the divine in all things. You see the divinity in every person you meet, and you welcome and respect and say, I see and greet the goddess, God within you. Namaste. Now I must enjoy my time with you when I'm with you. And always send people the best of blessings. This is what it means to die daily in a spiritual sense to the ego, so that the soul can reign on supreme in the heart, which is where it's meant to be. And you feel that union with the Creator, with the source of all that is, the God, Goddess, that is all of us. We are all just incarnations of the divinity and of the divine inside a human fleshly body, enjoying our life experience here together. So blessings. There will be more instruction on these techniques in future videos. I wish you well. Do practice meditation to the deepest place when the ego disappears. When you're in the deepest meditation, it's not just sort of the theta delta brainwaves. It's a place where the consciousness resides, and you get the boxes of ego out of the way, and you expand your consciousness to the blue sky, and the beauty of all the light, the sunlight in the blue sky, and you can just feel the gentleness of the spirit, of the Creator, the Shekinah, and the soul songs of all those spirit birds, as we say in the Sufi way. And in this perception of reality and truth, you will just feel that your life is gone, your ego is gone, all of your human lives have gone. You do go back to that original and all-pervasive, immortal, infinite perception of experience of the divine within you. This is the beauty of the Spirit. This is the beauty of the knowing of the oneness, which is just perfect love and perfect trust and perfect wholeness and perfect, deepest, highest peace. All love and blessings. See you again soon.